The final
There we are.
countdown.
Here we are. Welcome, Fall Breaker Studios channel, y'all. I got Crimson Owl Comics here. I got Gary Hodges here. We're going to chat a little about Midsommar, which was, I don't know, it was a pretty sweet movie. So I'm kind of ready to get to it, but I guess we should probably do some housekeeping first. Like,
Jason, I just want to ask real quick. I hate to interrupt. Was that like a Midsommar clap you just did when we started? Was that like
not intentionally, but like it's all like it brings all those old. It brings those old familiar feelings back, you know.
We're starting with the deep cuts, just like, you know.
That is a deep cut, but I'm surprised it had a gift. But
that's fun.
Okay.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Gary is our class disruptor today. No, it's all good. Ronnie just came out with a new comic. Ronnie, I'm gonna screen share it and then I'll let you chat about it for a little bit because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, let me screen share. I always do this, guys. I am no good at this Facebook thing. Maybe this will be my shtick one day, like Chevy Chase falling down the stairs. All right, here we go. Can you see it, Ronnie?
All right, so yeah, Vengeful Heart. So pretty much episode 1 is out, The Ritual, and the next episode is going to be called The Child, and you're pretty much going to see within the first issue, like the beginning of the main character of the story, who's, you know, definitely has hero elements and stuff like that. And yeah, it's going to get dark. It's going to get, you know, gory. There's going to be some nudity in it, but not like, but not like, but the thing is with Tapas, their nudity, it's like, okay, you can't just have like nudity in it where people are like having sex, but it has to be like something like this. So like pretty much at the beginning of chapter 2, The Child, at the end of the book, you actually see the hand of,
I'm not going to flip through your whole book. I think it looks so good.
Of the king coming out. And then that's when you're going to see like his ass basically, his ass, like, also, and his backside, like in the river of blood. And he's going to be facing the girl. So just give you a heads up. So
awesome. I'm into it. It's like a Benny Hill moment in horror.
Yeah. Right.
I'm into it.
So yeah, but it's fun. And I'm glad that Tapas has a mature content, because people out there that didn't know I was going to go with, you know, webtoons, but they're like, no, you can't have mature stuff, because I'm like, but they have horror comics on their webtoons. I mean, what do they consider mature and not mature? So I'm like, I'm just going to go with Tapas and not have to deal with that headache.
Yeah. And then we got Mr. This guy down here wrote the also Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. Watch this. I'm going to do this all smooth real quick.
Okay. All right.
Bang, bang, boom. Like, here we go. This makes me feel like an old man.
Where's the thingy? Where do I click? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's okay. So that's my Etsy shop.
Yeah. So you get each of these. You're running low on the
I'm low on both.
This is like you're low on both now. Oh man.
I'm low on both. I think so I know 97. I just counted yesterday because I mailed one out. 97. I have 2 copies left. That's the latest issue. And once that sells out, I'll be releasing a pulp edition of it with like a limited edition cover like 75, which you see on the left there. 75, yeah. I think I'm down to, I would have to check it, but I think it's like 10 copies maybe, 9 or 11 or 10, something like that.
Whoa.
Once that sells out.
Such a good book.
Once that sells out, it's gone for good. And the reprint will be the original cover, which looks more like that 97 cover. It'll be the more stylized kind of graphic cover.
Yep.
The pulp edition will never be reprinted. So if you're a collector, if you like that kind of retro styling, then I would say you got to move on it. Because like I said, 10 copies left, maybe.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's 1000% worth it. And it's one of those things, like, it's right in my wheelhouse. Like, I love all things UFOs and space aliens and above top secret. And this is the Man in Black that, like, I would have wanted if I was my age now when Men in Black came out. Because it was like an episode of Cops. Like me and Ronnie had such a good time like reading it, texting back and forth while we were reading it when you let us review it. And I'm like, oh man, like this is one of those books. So we had a good time with it. So it's always close by.
If you haven't read 75,
Jurassic Park meets Men in Black. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and if you're curious about 75 and you haven't read it, I would say like my take on Men in Black is informed by, so my father is a retired police officer, and I have a bunch of people in the family who have worked in government. I'm a government employee. And so my understanding of what a Man in Black would really be like was sort of informed by like knowing government employees, knowing police officers, and thinking like, what would that really, like what's a realistic take? If this was a real job, if you're collecting a paycheck working for the government, being a Man in Black, what would that look like? And so that was sort of what I tried to do in 75.
Yeah, you definitely nailed it. And both stories are so different, but they're familiar. So they stand alone, but they're better together. It's like a Reese's cup. I don't, I like both parts of this. I'm not a great huge fan of peanut butter, but when they're both together, it's like, okay, I'm in. Like it's worth your time, guys.
I appreciate that. They are. I'm glad you brought that up. Just for people who are curious, it is an anthology series. And when I say that, I mean, they pretty much are standalone. I think it's enhanced by reading all of them.
Right.
At this point, both. Yeah. I mean, I'm working on more. But you really, if you're like, I don't know which one to start with whichever one grabs you, look at descriptions of both. And, they're all unique characters, unique themes, self-contained story with a umbrella theme of a highly classified war that, with aliens and dinosaurs and Men in Black and scientists and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, so good. So Dinosaurs versus Marsbots on Etsy, guys. Pick it up. Go read Ronnie's book at Tapas.
Yes.
I don't have a link for your Tapas, Ronnie. I gotta get a banner made for your Tapas. But
it's in my link tree.
Yeah, so your link tree is in the description, so check it out. Both books are really good. I love the artwork in both books. The writing stands out. As a writer, I always enjoy seeing how other people do their thing. You guys definitely do your thing. I guess last but not least is the old mini comic bundles. Let me show y'all what those bad boys are all about. We're releasing 7 now. I just got mine in the mail, so everybody that's a subscriber or everybody that picked up bundle 7 should be getting it in the mail really, really soon if you haven't gotten it already. So these are the books. I'll be brief because we got to get to Midsommar, but we got Fright Rider, which is, I described to Ronnie yesterday, it's kind of like this horror take on Speed Racer. It's almost like Speed Racer and Alien at the same time. Again, Aaron Guzman is just a phenomenal artist. I love getting these. I love seeing what he does. Just a whole nother unique take on black and white. The Liaison is a 3-parter. This one is your sci-fi, spy, horror, a lot of horror elements, a lot of sci-fi elements too. Just about a guy who's, you're following this guy as he's going through this world where a portal has opened to a different dimension. And this book tonight is a night of intersecting roads, guys. Like this Gilead City is heavily inspired by almost the same subject matter that we're going to be discussing tonight. It's about a world where the ruling elite have their own religion, and somehow they stop everybody from dying until they're ready to end them. So it's a unique story. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I would say think Equilibrium. Am I not showing this screen? Am I sharing my screen?
I'm not seeing your screen, no.
Oh, man. I'm the worst, man. I'm a 1-star screen share.
I was still riveted by everything you were saying.
Oh, man. It's such a good story. But Gilead City, I want you guys to see Aaron's artwork because there we go. You can't imagine how
there. That's a great shot.
Look. Yeah, it's and like this is an interior. Like these books are so good at 1/8 the size, and I'll show them to you in my hand in a minute. But
and a mini, which is crazy. Like this is better than a lot of full size interiors. You know,
and I'm not saying this as a bad thing, but like go back up to the one with the joystick alien. Like that right there reminds me of like these direct to video 80s horror movies. And the thing is, people think like, oh, direct to video movies aren't good. No, a lot of direct to video movies that were like horror in the 80s were like really good.
Yeah, really good and really fun.
Yeah,
not like the sci-fi movies that you see now that are made.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just the last thing, like Gilead City, like I was saying, it's cult horror. Like it 1000% is. It's just set in a cyberpunk world. It's really good, and it was a very unique idea that was personal to me, and it was fascinating to see Aaron put it together like with his vision. And I love the way the first issue came out. It's a story in 3 parts. So this is the beginning of the story. It goes through some pretty cool twists and turns. So check them out. minicomicbundles.com. Find me on Instagram. Gary's on Instagram at Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. Ronnie's on Instagram at Crimson Owl Comics. Their link trees are Ronnie's link tree is in the description. I did have the description. I did have the link to your Etsy page. I didn't have your full link tree though. So I'll post it in the comments if you have it. But anyway, guys, like I guess I'm ready to talk about what we're here to get to. Oh, what's going on, Asher? How you doing, man? Awesome. So Midsommar, can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
I hear you.
Okay, perfect. So Midsommar.
Midsommar.
Where to begin? Like I've been talking to you guys about this like every opportunity I get because I keep going back to it and I keep watching it different every time. Mm-hmm. But just the gist of the movie is a girl that is obviously like she's hurting. She's got some struggles with her family. Through that comes her boyfriend and their weird relationship. They end up going on vacation together and all hell breaks loose. And let me tell you what, you can't go on vacation with a cult. I tried it, guys. It won't work. It's a 1-star experience. It's a lot of wasted time and like these weird highlights, but mine did not end this way, but I would not even recommend it the way that mine ended. So, yeah. I
want to establish right off the bat, what is our spoiler policy tonight?
This is it. This movie is older. So
let's just go. Okay.
Yeah,
so everything.
We're just talking about the movie. Yeah. So
yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free.
Yeah. From this point on.
Yeah, that's how I watched it.
Okay, cool.
If you haven't watched the movie, then don't watch the video.
Yeah.
Or watch the movie.
And if you haven't watched it, I think you should go watch it. Like, if we were all
Amazon Prime
thumbs up or thumbs down right now, we would all say thumbs up, correct? I'm assuming.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
But yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free right now.
Yeah. Cool. Such a good movie. Highly recommend. I guess we're gonna get to it. And I feel like we all 3 have similar but different realities of the movie. So, and they're all right. I know Ari Aster says that this is a breakup movie,
right?
Yeah. But I just feel like there's more to the puzzle than that, and that's just what I want to talk about. My door looks really red. Is this my door? Oh, it's mine and Ronnie's door. I'm like, what's going on here?
You guys are in the same room. It almost looks
Don't mind the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, look at how it blends. That's crazy. You guys.
I was checking my door. I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I feel like. We'll see as we get into it. I suspect Jason, your take is probably the most distinct compared to Ronnie's and I'm just going to assume like Ronnie's
Sure.
and mine, because you're going to be coming at it from looking at it through a totally different lens. Like I do see it very much like Aster has talked about. Like, I mean, to me, it's like a weird fever dream breakup movie.
Right.
And I think that is a qualifier I would offer to anyone who's wondering if they want to see it. I'm curious if you guys agree or disagree. While it's absolutely a horror movie, I wouldn't say it's a scary movie. Like there's an overwhelming sense of dread. There's a lot of tension. You're watching things kind of spiral out of control, but it's not like a jump scare, like shock horror. You know, like it's not that kind of. It's more like a dread horror movie.
It's completely up to you to be scared by this movie,
right?
Because you can just watch Danny and Christian.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
that's well, and I would say actually to me, agree or disagree, guys. So since we're doing spoilers, in the first 10 or 15 minutes, it's established that Danny has a kind of emotionally disturbed sister who's having a tough time. She's trying to get her. She got a sort of ambiguous and kind of creepy message from her. She's trying to get her on the phone, trying to raise her through texts, and panicking, kind of spiraling a little bit about it. She calls her boyfriend about it for support. It's very quickly established that her boyfriend is a bit of a piece of shit. You know, like not the worst guy in the world. And I think that's an important thing to emphasize through the whole movie, and especially the ending. Not the most terrible guy you've ever seen in a movie, but nowhere near a contender for boyfriend of the year. Like he is like
he's just not good at it.
He's just not good. He wants out. He's done, and he's just not man enough to say it. You know, like he's waiting for her to pull the trigger, I think.
Right.
You know. And it turns out, like, Danny, the main character, was right to worry, where her sister has not only committed suicide, it's a murder-suicide. She kind of rigged the whole house to fill with carbon monoxide and kill her and Danny's parents as well. Yep. And that scene, this is the first 10 or 15 minutes, to me, was the most horrific thing, not only in the movie, but I think that maybe I've seen in any movie.
It felt very real.
It was so real and so deeply disturbing. And her calling her boyfriend back after she discovers this and just wailing. And then him going like dead man walking over to this girl's apartment where he was just about, get the impression to leave, going over because he knows like this, like I can't leave now. And I do care about this girl, like just as a human being.
Right.
Sitting with her on the couch when she's just completely falling apart. It is devastating. Like just the most devastating thing I think I've seen in a movie.
In his mind, he wishes that she was better. Like he would like her if she didn't have problems.
Yes. It's
you
not
know, and he's hoping that she doesn't have problems. So what's your take, Ronnie?
It was definitely like how Gary was saying. It was terrifying in the sense because the way like her sister was calling her, and then when she was calling her boyfriend, and you just hear the wailing, it's why it's so terrifying, because unlike other horror movies that are trying to have like the cheesiness into it, this seemed a lot more real. And that's why it was so terrifying, because it's one of those things that you could see anyone doing, like having a breakdown, because you just realized that, hey, you could have easily picked up the phone and probably done something to like maybe stop it. And the way the actress was just wailing, oh man, it was just really deep and emotional. And it wasn't one of those things like you could tell she was like, you know, faking. It just seemed so real to me.
It's heartbreaking. She's amazing. And I think she partly makes this movie. Like, I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
She did a really good job.
She's amazing. And I mean, I've never seen an actress cry like her. Like, she's just, like, it's so affecting, you know?
the first part of this movie, I guess in this same time frame, like up to the point that they leave to go to Sweden. I haven't watched it all at once. Like I find myself looking down or like looking away because it's very awkward because she doesn't really fit in very well. And she's aware of it. And it makes it worse.
Right?
And it's just it wants to make you not like her, but it makes you like her. It makes you pull for her more because nobody likes her.
You feel bad
she's
for her.
Trying.
Yeah, and she's not welcome in any room until she gets to Sweden. Any room she's in, it's kind of like she's totally the third wheel. She's not. She's whatever the 1, 2, like the fourth or fifth wheel or something. Yeah, right. Yeah,
right.
But like other than the Swedish guy, I don't remember his name. I think it starts with
Pell. Oh, yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, yeah, we will. Pell's always very like welcoming. But everyone else is kind of like, oh,
why is she here?
Kind of like very awkward and like kind of assholey awkward about it. Where it's you know. But I also thought very believably,
because they were assholes because they wanted her to break up.
They wanted, and they're a bunch of 20-year-olds. Right. You know, like I mean, I can imagine like at this stage of our lives. Like if your friend came to you and was like, I kind of want to get out of this relationship, like that wouldn't necessarily affect your relationship with her.
Right.
But when you're 20 or something, like when you're 22, like it's all like that's very weird and you don't want to pick a side and like all that kind of bullshit, you know. Right. It makes it so they kind of make it worse in ways by
she's the last survivor of her family that she obviously is alienated from. Yeah. But the world that she left them in familiar world to leave it to go to this world, and she's a reject. It's tough. Like the party scene is very uncomfortable for me. Like it's really uncomfortable because I've had no clue in public settings before. And like Ronnie was saying, you forget that it's a movie in chunks because she nails that obliviousness like to a T at the beginning of this movie.
Well, in a very real life awkwardness where she can't call out her boyfriend right then and there because it's awkward. You're at a party, you're surrounded by people. Like you just now, it was revealed accidentally that your boyfriend has sort of been plotting to go on some month-long trip without telling you. In 2 weeks, he's already got the plane ticket. Like you can tell in her brain, she's like exploding. Right. But she's just sitting there kind of like mouth hanging. Like and she can't do anything about it now. Where in, I think, a lesser movie, there would have been like the big awkward fight at the party. Which never
That's what
happened,
the movie,
you know, like it would be as it was like kind of later, either in the drive home or once you get home, it's sort of like, so what was that? Like, when were you going to tell me? Like, and that's kind of how it comes out. You know, I can't emphasize enough. And this is part of what it got me so into this movie. The first 30 minutes, especially, it plays it so straight, so authentic, so real. Like there's not like a inauthentic note in there. Now, I can't say the same once they get to Sweden, but in defense of the characters, it seems like they're all kind of high on hallucinogens.
They're high on a lot. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't wait to talk about Sweden.
Right, yes. But getting before that, everyone behaves just like real people behave. And it's very...
Instead of having each person be like a typical stereotype that you've seen in a horror movie.
Right. It wasn't
even
the
like
formulaic
guy. Even like the kind of smart ass guy. Like in other movies, he would be such a caricature. Mm-hmm. But in like he comes off as like you knew that guy, you know, in high school and college. Like he seems like that guy, you know.
Right. You know, it's a long movie because it's like 2 hours and 27 minutes, like the theatrical is. But
Yeah.
The first 30 minutes is basically somebody just telling you about these characters. Like, these are the people that are going to this place that I'm going to tell you about later. So I just want to fill you in on who these people are.
And I love it so much.
I
love it so much. I mean, it's my favorite kind of storytelling where it's like, let me really get a feel for these people, and are they interesting and do they feel real? And then send them on their weird journey. You know?
Like you did with your story.
Yeah.
With the two agents.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I don't want to look, Midsommar is a totally different level of art than D versus M. But I think part of my affection for it is like I see it and it's like that's the ambition. Like that's what I try to do.
Yeah,
right?
for
sure.
I want you to get my characters and then put them on this crazy adventure, you know, but I want them to be real and plausible and human. And I think Midsommar nails it. You know, they get that.
Man, it's so good. And the worst thing should be what happened to her family is a tragedy. That should be the worst thing. But it was set up. Like, can you imagine like that this is what we're talking about? Like in storytelling, like a triple murder suicide was set up. It was.
That would have been the climax of other horror movies. And that would have been the most horrible movie you've ever seen. You know, like that'd be
that could have happened while she was in Sweden. You know what I mean? Like that could have happened while she was in Sweden, and that would have been what was bad.
Oh God, can you imagine? Yeah. She comes back to that. That would be, I can picture a lesser version of this movie where she'd go on her trip. It would be a little crazy. She'd get home, so happy that she survived that craziness, open the front door, and the house is filled with carbon monoxide and everybody's dead. That would be like this, like, what? You know, like crazy. But no. This is just the opener. This is just the local band opening from Metallica. Like, we're not even like, just wait.
Yeah. So do you have anything else? I don't want to. I'm trying to go through the story.
Yeah,
because it's such a long movie.
Well, let's talk about the Dutch friend that pretty much told them.
Okay. Yeah.
What? I'm sorry.
The Dutch friend of his.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like. Yeah. Any like spoilers? He is part of the people, and he was like, "Hey, won't you guys come along?" And in the movie, one of his friends that can't talk and paralyzed, he's basically looking at his friend. It's like, okay, you brought us here because you wanted us. So imagine, and that's pretty much how like some cult people are, you know, they're not like how you see in movies that they're demonic and they're ruthless and evil. No, if they have a special purpose for you, they're going to try to become your best friend and to try to get on your good side. And that's pretty much like what this guy did, because who knows how long he went to the same college and how long he knew these people before he pretty much told them, hey, let's go to this place that I know.
Yeah, I'm sure he had cheap tickets and it sounds fun.
It's something that even in the director's cut, it's not important. Like it's not a complaint that it's a little fuzzy to me, but it's a little fuzzy to me how much of this is all part of the plan. Like, did he deliberately recruit these people for these specific roles that they end up playing once they're in Sweden? Like, or is it just like, is it some kind of weird Darwinian cult Hunger Games where it's like, I'm going to bring these friends and the cult will sort it out. Like, you know, like we'll see where people end up. Or was he spotting them and saying like, this guy's going to be perfect for this. I bet this guy is going to be perfect for this. Danny is going to be excellent for the, you know, like, is he recruiting or is he just like, we need cattle, like just bring bodies?
I think you're right. I think that the goal is bodies, but I think that every Easter egg has like a golden ticket inside of it. And I think that you have to recruit the group that you can get. But if you have a group that has a girl with blonde hair in it, you're bringing back the May Queen. Because think about the reactions to Pale, particularly They would look at her, and then they would look at him, and then they would hug him more. His brother did the same thing with his whole other group that he brought. None of those people, like those people were food. Like
they're not contenders. Yeah. No, and not only that, Pell was very excited about Danny, and they make a point, and I think he's being frank. I think he's being authentic. Like when he has her alone at their apartment, he's like, I'm especially excited that you're coming. Like, and I buy it. Like, I don't think that's manipulation. I don't think that's some weird, like he's doing some kind of Svengali thing on her.
No,
like, I think he's like,
it's truth in words.
You're perfect.
Yeah.
It's just lost your family. You're unmoored. Your boyfriend's a piece of shit. You're perfect. Like,
you're the perfect specimen. For the ritual, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Who can remember? Like, we're chopping through this part at a pretty good clip, but who can remind me to double back to this moment in like maybe 10, 15 minutes? So I feel like we'll be through most of the movie. But I don't moment? The Pell moment.
Okay.
And the Pell and Danny moments.
Okay.
But so from here, you have I can't remember the black kid that was with Christian. They were the ambitious ones. Like they were there, and they were there to soak it all in no matter what and try to get like work out of it, like for their theses. The other two guys, like Mark, was just kind of along for the ride.
He wanted to score with a Swedish chick. Like
that was it. Like like he was the food of their group.
Right.
But it goes on. He obviously was the first one to be disrespectful. So he was the first one to kind of be spirited away for a little bit.
Which, by the way, if there's one thing about this movie that this is another question I have. It doesn't hurt it, but I'm curious. Right. It's a little funny to me that no one seemed to explain any of the craziness or the rules to any of them when they show up. And like when you're talking about like the initial, like let's talk about the initial ceremony they witness at the spire, like the tall drop.
Yeah.
It's a little astonishing to me that not only Pell, but even the Anthrograd student who knows what's about to happen when he asks, like, what's the deal tomorrow? And I forgot, it's like a stupid, or so, it's some kind of a word where he knows what it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's like, are you serious? Like, he knows what it is. And all his friends are like, well, what is it? What is it going to be scary? And he's kind of like, you'll see. You know, like, it's like, no, if you really knew what that was, like, you'd be bracing. You'd be like, you might not want to go tomorrow.
Yeah, somebody shouldn't go. Like,
hell, just seeing the people jump off the cliff, and then when the other man didn't like die and they finished him off, I'm like, I'm the hell out of here. Bye. Yes. I like your chocolate.
Where do you go though?
Yeah. But that's where people start not acting how you would. I think half or more of that group, after you watch that first thing, would be like, well, this was great, guys. I'm spending the rest of the time in Amsterdam. And like, and like,
they're
out. And it's like, well, there's only one truck. It's like, I can walk. It's cool. Yeah. It's beautiful out. I'll walk. Like, I mean, it's like, you're done. I respect your beliefs, whatever you're doing here. Thank you so much. Goodbye. But I guess that's where you could say, at this point, they've all been ingesting like weird mushroom punch. And like, I don't know, maybe they're a little foggy about, the reality of their situation.
But think about it. This is kind of a leap ahead, but like towards the end, the lady tells Christian that particular combination lowered inhibitions. Yeah. So they know what they're adding and when they would add it. But also, this is the crazy thing about this whole Hälsingland shit. If you've ever gone, you'll never see this. And if you ever see this, it's impossible that you will ever tell somebody about it.
Right.
It's from the time that they find out that Never mind. I'm getting started.
You know what?
And
I
it's
think
not
one
time
of
yet.
you two, I think someone here, maybe one of you two, since I went and walked through the opening murder-suicide, someone should, for people who haven't watched and aren't worried about spoilers, explain the cliff thing. Like,
Ronnie, you do that because
Yeah, pretty much what it is that in the group of the ritual people, when you become the age of, I think, 75 or 76, something like
72.
that.
72.
Yeah, 72, you're pretty much able, they pretty much telling you that, you have to leap for your life and in your life, because I think that's like the ripe age or something. I'm still trying to remember most of that, even though I watched the movie today, but it's
Yeah.
just like, I guess like that's the golden age.
Yeah, basically you've lived enough, so you give up your spirit to the newborn who will come at the end of this particular ritual cycle.
Right.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if like those people who do it at 72, like, is it because this ritual or the ceremony has to be done only after every so many, like 72 years or whatever? Like they don't go, I think they don't go into detail on how many times this ceremony happens.
Now that I do remember, it is definitely ambiguous in the theatrical cut. I wondered the same thing. In the director's cut, there is a scene where Christian, Danny's boyfriend, who has now decided he's going to do his thesis, he's going to kind of screw over his friend who's there doing a thesis on this. He's going to do his thesis on it as well. And he's interviewed, you see a brief interview of one of the cultists where he's asking questions like, how many of these have you seen? And she was like, well, every year, so many. So like that establishes, yes, that happens all the time. I think the thing that only happens infrequently is the whole May Queen ceremony, perhaps.
Yeah, that's true.
That I think might be less common.
I guess people turn 72 all the time.
Right, and whenever they do, they're expected to commit suicide. That was the director's cut makes that more clear. So
I guess, but I guess that's better than being the bear. You know what I mean? Like this is
better than being the bear.
These are the roles. Like that's what I was getting.
And we'll talk later about like besides the bear, how not his friends, but some of the people that were already dead from jumping off the cliff, how they had twigs and stuff in them, like they were like scarecrows or puppets. Or
they counted toward because there was a quota for this little hut.
There was 9,
and they counted. Yeah. That's something that I think the first time I watched it, I was a little confused. It's like, well, who are those two? And like, it was when I rewatched, it's like, oh, it's the 72-year-olds. I got it. All right.
Yeah. And we'll go, not jumping too much ahead, but like, it's
fine. Like
it was scary, but it was funny too, how like the first body that they brought in that was like had hay all stuffed in it. It was like trying to stretch the neck and rearrange it and everything. I was like,
it was like, it was really like, not
it was unkept. It was unkept.
Yes, it wasn't the greatest craftsmanship I had seen from the cult, but
so I gotta say, like, this movie was to see how they all like. It was almost Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory to see how they were all enticed to their own demise.
Yeah,
every single one of them. They knew that they could get Josh or Christian either too immersed or to ask the wrong question to the wrong person, and that would justify them ending them.
Yeah,
Josh was too aggressive, wanting to take pictures of the books, but why wouldn't he? How would they understand that part? But he took, it was another excuse to take great offense to something, to end somebody, to accomplish the overall goal. Gross.
You can see. I did enjoy that, and I keep shorthanding this group as the cult. And Jason, you might. I'd be interested in your take. Like I'm not sure if that's for me the best descriptor, just because I guess it depends how you define a cult in your head. But to me, it's like there wasn't really like a charismatic leader. you couldn't really tell that anybody was kind of living high on the hog at the expense of everybody else.
Mhm.
Like it seemed like it was more just like a highly dysfunctional, weird ethnic group, that was like, I bet cult is just an easy way to kind of sum up, because
it's one, the charismatic leader was the mushrooms.
Yeah.
There you go.
The living high on the hog was perfect there. You got perfect weather and sunlight for over 24 hours.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And nobody knew where you were.
I mean, you got to sleep in a barn with crying babies, but otherwise,
yeah, but you didn't know anything else. Like,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But never mind. That's another bullet point I'll get to after we finish. I just want to get through the movie first, because we're doing it.
Are we trying to do chronological?
I just want to do a quick chronological.
Okay.
So here's the thing about spoilers, and this movie is fine to watch. Like, knowing everything about it, it's fine to watch. There's nothing that's ultra shocking. It follows a beat once the movie starts. You won't be disappointed. But we're like edging towards like the bottom part of the middle now. So if you're here this long, you want to know what's going on.
I want to second what you just said. It's funny, especially in a post-Wicker Man world. Nothing like, from the word go, from the trailers, more or less what this movie's going to be. Like, all right, and this is not really spoiling anything. Like, again, you get it from the trailers. Okay, a group of Americans are going to go to a foreign land, and everything's going to go sideways. Yep. Like, that is basically what happens, and that is also well trodden, like, horror story tropes. What sets this one apart is all in the execution and the characterization. And so that's why I do believe, with the exception of maybe the last 10 minutes, it's a very difficult movie to spoil, because
it just is.
Seeing it is what's cool, and like seeing how it unfolds. Like, how it will unfold, but like seeing like the particular choices, that's what's kind of fun about it. And that's where I think you can't really spoil that, in my opinion.
No, it's an unspoilable movie. Like, you can, I don't know. The ending is not, I wouldn't say it's like I'm going to lose sleep shocking. It also is. It's just looking at a snow globe, and you shake it up, and this is the way everything falls.
Yeah.
And that's that. But I don't know, Ronnie. What did you like? You're a classic horror. Like, you're a classic true blue horror guy. So like, where does a movie like this fall in with horror that you typically like?
It's definitely a top notch, because it's one of those things, like, as horror grows more, where you got out of the whole cheesy like 80s slasher comedy bit, and now you're going to something that's a little bit more serious. And throughout the news, growing up as a child and stuff like that, you've read stories about, like, I can't remember his name, about the whole group of people that got together and drunk the punch and all end up dead.
Oh, Jonestown.
Yeah.
Jonestown.
So with a movie like this, it doesn't have like that 80s cultist trope to it. It has more of a realistic form to it, where it's like,
you damn right,
you read stories, and you get to realize that the things that are happening here is actually things that really do happen. You don't have like the whole like people acting crazy and people like just flipping out. No, these people act like your friends and act like your neighbors until they get what they want from you. So it's definitely a great horror movie, and not like these cheesy, like, I'm just going to go for pure gore and nudity and have no storyline. No, this is a great, as like you guys are saying, it's not like a scare tactor and like Jump, but it's a great scare tactic here. Like, to think about, people like this in the real world exist, and it makes you think that, hey, I don't want to be driving around in a back road country town that has hardly no lights, because who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, see, like I felt like that this part, because just about everybody that's going to die at this point is dead. There's the people who came that came with the other guy, but we all knew as soon as we saw them that it was over for them anyway. Like I think it was Simon and somebody else, but yeah, they died too at this point. But at this point, it was like the angling begins. It was like the final chess moves, where it's like all the pieces that we need are in place now. So now let's just like push everything together. Let's push these two apart, get her more familiar with us, because something interesting was when she was on her mushroom trips, she almost started to become the land. She didn't, it was like growing through her hand or growing on her hand. Like, depending on how you looked at it. And she noticed that then, and she also noticed it at the end, but at the end, it was roots. It was like, it was different. Like she was there at that point. And but no, so this is where like the bad part of the movie becomes the sad part, because Christian he's kind of trying because nobody else is around really, but he can't put the pieces together. Like they just don't work. Like he's got Lego and Mega Blocks, and they just don't. He can't light her birthday cake. He didn't know it was a birthday. He didn't know how long they had dated.
As awful as he is, I really want to emphasize for people who haven't seen it, it's very much lowercase a awful. Like he's lowercase v villain. Like not really, but like he's just sort of disappointing, you know. Like I mean, he's not. He's not. Again, he doesn't. He mistreats her in that he's not doing right by her and not being honest with her. But again, it's a lowercase m mistreat, you know, and that's what sort of keeps you. I thought it was a neat choice, because if they had just played him as a straight dick, you know, who's just nasty to her and an awful guy and just, you know, just like frat guy, obnoxious, terrible, I think a lot of the movie would kind of feel flat. Like there is something interesting in that.
He's so spineless that they built around him.
Yeah, and you kind of feel bad for him, even though he's not a great guy. Like you feel like he's just a little hapless, you know, like that and you know, like he's screwed because he's just so weak. Like he just can't, he's just always, he's like a little dinghy just kind of bouncing on the ocean, like wherever it's going, like I guess that's where I'm going, you know. And it's like you're screwed, man, if you don't kind of like
he understood the murals. He knew exactly what was going to happen to him. But because there was more of them than there were of him, he was just going to go along with it. And he tried to fight it at the very end, but it was already over.
At that last banquet, he's sitting there watching Danny be elevated. And you can just tell from the look on his face, he just knows, like, this is my last meal. Like I'm like, this is terrible. Like you see, he's just so defeated and deflated. Like he just knows that this is bad. This is just bad, bad, bad.
He's like, one of my last drinks had hair in it. But no, it's just like.
But it makes you wonder, like, going on more. But we saw how he was in the partake of the ritual of like the virgin girl in the middle, where he pretty much had to impregnate her, and you had all the elder women behind in a circle, just naked and moaning. And then at the end, after he just released, she's like, "Oh, I can feel the baby inside me." It's like, you know, did his other friends that were guys, did they do the same thing with them, with different women that were, you know, in it, like basically versions, or was he just destined to partake in that?
I think
the mural said it was him. The mural said so.
And I suspect I don't know, but I can't help but think that Pell, when he was talent scouting,
Yep.
Yeah.
like, so the matron, like the matriarch at the, we'll just say cult, whatever we're calling it, because I don't remember. Is there a name for this place? I don't even remember if there's a name.
It's they're called the Hogger.
I don't remember.
But the place is called Halsing Land. Yeah.
Well, the matriarch there, when she interviews Christian, she calls him in and she said, like, based on your astrological like signs and everything, you are uniquely compatible with, the 16-year-old girl. And that's information that Pell would have had.
Yep.
So like he might have like, who are all the people I know? When were they born? What's their birthday? Like, look, consult with
your horoscope
back home.
Right. Yeah, you might find 5 guys who fit that demographic, but which one is attached to,
and then just start early, like a year beforehand, say like, hey, I'm going home for the summer.
Yep.
Come along, it'll be great, and just start working, like work.
That's it.
Yep. And then 1 or 2 will pay off. It's a numbers game, just like,
Man, it's just such a deservingly sad ending for Christian. I found him to be fully unlikable. Like, I get what you mean. Like,
he's not hateable, but he's definitely unlikable. Like, he's just a guy, again, kind of like the weird Joker guy. Like, he's a guy that we've all known where, like, he's just a tool and he will backstab you first chance he gets. He's a nice guy to hang out with and have a beer with, but don't get too close, Like, and that's sort of like we all like, and I bet a lot of women have dated a Christian in their lives,
sure,
where it's sort of like, oh yeah, I know that guy, and that's the other thing in defense. Like I saw the directors say, and I thought this was very astute, and I could agree with it. He said like a lot of this is about a drawn out, difficult breakup where one person wants out but doesn't want to pull the trigger.
Yep.
And the other person is trying to hang on. And like, you're going to have to cause
something's got to give. Yep.
Yeah. Like if you want to do this right, but because you don't want to, it goes on longer than it should. The director said like, I've been on both sides of that equation, like, I mean, and I think that's a very human thing. Like if you've dated enough, if you've been in enough relationships, like you've been the person who's like, I know this is done, but I just don't know how to do it. And you've also like been on the other end where it's like, wow, this person was checked out for a while and I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I just gotta say, like, I get what Ari Aster is like. This is what this movie is about. But it's like this movie is faceted because yes, all this stuff was happening, but I'm like looking around Danny and Christian a lot and saying, why do I know this place? Like, how do I fit in? How do I fit in with all these white people?
Yeah.
But it's like, why does this feel so familiar to me in spaces?
Why does rural Sweden, of all places, like, why is this ringing true? So you should probably explain to the audience why you have a kind of a unique.
So this movie is about a cult, and I was in a cult, and I watched this movie with very open ears and very open eyes, and it's not the scariest movie I've seen, but it's one of probably my favorite horror movie because in the world of trying to do your best writing, you realize how many levels there are. Because like you said, Gary, like this is the goal for so many of us, and probably you too, Ronnie. But this is what it looks like through a different filter. So, geez, guys, like there's so much to. Like we've been going for almost an hour already, but we got a few more things I'd like to get to, like after we get to the end. But I got a lot more to say. I just don't want to tail off like so close to the end of this movie.
Let's talk about some of the deaths, like one death in particular, because the death is actually, well, the person was kind of alive too, but what happened to that friend is actually a real torture device that people had back in the day.
Flesh eagle or skin eagle, whatever it's called. Blood eagle,
the blood eagle. Like that man was literally being hung by hooks, and his back was cut open, and his intestines and everything was hanging out, and you could literally see his lungs breathing in and out. So that man was partially probably still alive.
Yeah. So this is actually a good spot, like, to keep going with the movie, because you can't see that and then expect to be normal.
Yeah.
Like you can't go back home.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Right.
And so, like, this is Christian's progression of his march of death, you know, down and around the corner, and it's like you got one note to play, but it's over for you, buddy. Like,
yeah.
Well,
you serve your purpose.
And for the audience, I want to. So, am I the only one here who's watched the director's cut before?
I think so. I haven't seen it.
Because I think Amazon has the theatrical.
The theatrical. So what I watched, I saw the theatrical version in the theater, and then I watched the director's cut last week or something, or the weekend. And I was when we were talking about this before, like a few days ago, I mentioned to Jason that there's a scene in it that's very interesting, and kind of it's not bad, but to me it played like the writer tipping his hand and showing how he's thought this all out. Mm-hmm. But he's having characters say this, and I think the reason they cut it is because the characters shouldn't be knowing all these things.
Right.
You know, they shouldn't have that clarity. They shouldn't be able to step back and say, like, oh, this is what's happening. And what it was there's a scene, and you see glimpses of it in the theatrical trailer, which is funny. There's a nighttime scene where Danny is saying, like, I don't want to, like, I think Christian is saying, like, we just need to acclimate a little bit. And she's like, I don't want to acclimate. I want to go home. Well, that's part of like a bigger conversation where she says to him, think about what we've seen so far. There is no way they're going to let us leave. Like, like when you just from like the cliff stuff and everything else, like they're never going to willingly let us walk out of here. We need to bail, Right. And like that was to me, that's what I was saying. Like it made sense from the writer's perspective. It didn't make sense from Danny's or Christian's perspective, because once they say that, the next morning they kind of carry on like that conversation never happened. And it's like, wait, I thought we were talking about how we might be doomed being here. Right. Like, are we going to finish that conversation?
Right.
So that was, I thought, it was something that's in the director's cut that was a good cut that I think should, that was the theatrical version is superior in that.
It was a look too far behind. Like it was. Yeah. But it only worked that Danny was weak until she wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's a realization that she could have come to at any point, because she's got anxiety. I know what that's like. So you think a lot of things, and one of them might be right, but there's 1,000 things going through. And once you settle on, okay, we can't leave here alive, all of us. Christian accepted his role. She accepted hers.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
And
just
so
like his whole life.
He's such a chicken shit, man.
He's such a chicken shit. But that's just it. It kind of is fitting how his end is, because his whole life, it was the same thing. He went along. He just sort of went along. Like, and even when he knew, like, he sees, metaphorically, he's being walked up the steps to the guillotine. And he's just kind of like, well, like, that's not literally what happens, but it's kind of just like, he's kind of like, oh, this sucks. But he's just being swept along, where he, at any point, he could have broken up with that girl. He could have not brought her on the trip. He could have not drank the crazy mushroom juice. He could have not participated in the kinky pagan orgy. He could have not, like, there's so many times where he could have been like, actually, you know what? No, I don't want to, like, I'm not going along. But because he's just a wimp, Like it's just kind of like, oh well, I guess this is happening.
This is the way things are.
Yes,
well, I'm gonna just do it anyway.
Yeah. Oh gosh darn. You know, I mean that's kind of him like throughout the whole.
Yep. But yeah, like I guess like that's the gist of the movie, guys. Like there's so much nuance. Like we could talk about it forever. But here we are, like at the end of the movie with Christian now, like seeing this blood eagle. He gets paralyzed after he's already mentally on Pluto.
He's done.
And right, he's toast. Danny is told to seal the ritual as the May Queen, because I want to talk about the May Queen as we're talking about the rest of this stuff.
Yeah.
But after she's the May Queen, she gets to decide who goes into this big yellow building that won't be a big yellow building for very long.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she chooses Christian to be like the star on the Christmas tree, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, the ninth sacrifice.
You know, so it's like all these people go in, Danny's the May Queen, and Danny accepts her role. I guess that's the best way to say it. And she leads a bunch of very happy people on top of a mountain somewhere, never to be seen again.
Yeah. And it occurred to me that, okay, like superficially, this is a horror movie.
Sure.
A level down, but though I would say it's more like superficial. It's like it's a kind of a fever dream breakup movie.
Yep.
But I would say, like, you could now hear me out here. It's kind of also the wacky origin story of like a pagan cult queen.
Sure.
You know, like, I mean, you could kind of see it like it's like a weird super villain origin story where like about how Danny like lost everything and was kind of reborn and ascended into this new family, this new life, this new, you know.
She even kind of moves like a larva at first when she's in her May Queen dress. Like she comes into it. And her headdress does kind of look like Rita Repulsa. So, yeah, it could work. It was just made out of flowers. Like, it could work as this pagan goddess. Like, she's got cold in her. There's no question about that. And she's very protective of the lifestyle that is being created by her new surroundings. Yeah. She feels she's happy to feel like she belongs there. Because she doesn't really fit in anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's the whole scary gist of this movie.
And you just saying that makes me wonder about her motive in picking Christian for the fire hut. Because if like with the and I think you're right, but so if you're right, you kind of have to pick Christian because he's the biggest threat to her being pulled out of there.
100%.
Like that's the only contact to the outside world.
Yep.
And that's why even though maybe she doesn't hate him, like he's the logical choice.
They had to take both of them up for one of them to push the other one off the cliff, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only way that it can happen, because
you kind of blew my mind there. I hadn't thought, but like that, because I was always thinking like, why does she? Is it just spite? Like, because what? He had sex with another girl and like was a dick. But it's like
she decided to do this. Yep. Mm-hmm. She decided to do this when he didn't tell her about the trip. You didn't want to tell me about the trip? I'll leave you. I'll leave you in Sweden. I'll set you on fire in Sweden.
I'm not going to tell you about your trip.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Right.
Here's your uniform. It's a bearskin.
Yeah, ooh, luxurious. Yeah, luxurious. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this movie the story of this movie is phenomenal. It is. But I think the reception of this movie by the viewers is what makes it special. Mm-hmm. Just like that's how I feel about Blair Witch Project too. I still have a hard time watching that movie because it's your imagination that runs the show when you watch movies like that. You never saw a lot of the horrible stuff in Midsommar. but you knew it was happening.
Yeah.
You knew it was happening.
Yeah,
And
really, I mean, it's shocking when you see it because it's played in a very realistic way. So it makes it more upsetting or shocking. And it's always, not always, usually full, bright, midday sun, as opposed to like kind of in a dark, like where you can't really see what happened. Like you usually see exactly what happened. Like just thinking about the cliff scene, like that cliff scene, like lets you know, like, oh man, you're not gonna turn the camera away at the last minute, are you? Like you're gonna show like what's happening, and like the Blood Eagle guy. That's one.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, you're not shying away. But it's actually fairly. I bet if you did a supercut of all the gory moments of Midsommar, I'm sure someone has on YouTube. It's probably like 3.5 or 4 minutes out of a
it's not
2.5 hour movie. Like,
it's
mostly just dread and paranoia and heartbreak and
It's what if your worst anxiety was true about where you were, but you were not the May Queen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it does to me kind of feel like an origin movie. Yeah. Because from any other point of view other than Danny's, this is a horrific nightmare, like that, just with a terrible ending.
Yep.
Now with Danny's ending, it's ambiguous. Like no one at the end is like, phew, well, at least Danny made it. Like no one's saying that, but it's a kind of a interesting, like challenging ending where it's like, what do you think about that? And it's like, I don't know what to think about that. It's not horrible. It's not great. Like, it's like, I don't know. And it begs a lot of questions about what you think happens a half hour after the end of that movie, or a day after the end of that movie, or a week after the end of that movie. Like,
I'm going to answer that question.
Okay.
But first, Ronnie, what do you think about that?
Go on.
Like, what do you think about the end of this movie? Like, what do you think about what Gary was just talking about? What do you think about the reality of not being Danny in this movie?
And like, what's Danny doing a week from now after?
That's a good question, because it's like, now that she's pretty much their queen, like, what other rituals or what other festivals do they have to take part in? And also, what fate does she has? Like, is her purpose is to like get pregnant as well since she's young? Or, it's, I don't know. It's like one of those movies, like, you don't want a sequel, but you kind of want to know more about what's going to happen to the character. You know what I mean? Because you have such a great, like, lore behind this, and such like history that you kind of have deep in the movie, that you kind of want to know more about the history. Like, even if it wasn't about like Danny, if you made like a prequel when they started this whole ritual in the beginning, like what made them want to do this in the beginning and how they came about doing it.
I'll tell you what, I will tell you guys what happens. I'll tell you guys what happens 10 minutes, 10 hours, and 10 days after this festival.
All right.
Nothing. This is what it all builds up to. This is life. This is cult life. Cult life is a friend selling another friend out, and the excitement of this friend's loyalty and the expulsion of this friend. And then it goes then the excitement goes away, and then it's all over until it needs to happen again. It's a show of power. That's all this really is. It's a reminder that you are where you will always be.
So so you're saying basically this is the most interesting period in a fairly monotonous like life up there, where like you just happening to see their little holiday period.
Right, because yes, people jump off the cliff, but what if nobody's birthday is the week that the Halsing Land is happening? Nothing happens. It's very rare that all three of these events would line up. And that's why it was so astrologically important that Christian mate with this woman or this girl during this thing, because this was all of the stars were aligned.
This was a special time. Yeah.
This was a very special time. But this is 100%
I found something really good.
What's that?
I found something really good that I want to read. One person had a theory on why and each person had to die the way they did. Okay. So I'm just going to talk about it. And it was really interesting because like with the cults and the rituals, each character kind of represents one of the elements, the 4 elements. So it's like talking about here when Josh's body is found, his foot is sticking out of the ground. He represents earth, and his foot may symbolize a plant. Mark is skin and filled with hay. The theory argues that he represents fire because hay burns quicker than flesh. And then Connie is seen for the final time. She's wet and covered in seaweed, and her death represents water. And then you have Simon, who at the end with the eagle is found hanging from the ceiling and is still breathing. He represents air in one of the most horrific ways possible. So, a lot of cults back then, not like the ones you kind of see now, like kind of the ones that you would see like back in like the old times, like a lot of different cults actually do rely on the 4 elements to basically be like gods of theirs. So it would be interesting if like that's why they had to kill those people in that certain way, because it represented like like we've talked about, a certain element or a certain part of that ritual that has to be part of that.
Yep.
I also see what kind of it does seem a little perfect. So there's probably something to that. There's the added thing with the smartass guy. I always forget. I don't remember his name. Like he was part of. Remember they were playing that game when they showed up, where the kids were playing Skin the Fool. Like that was, and that's where he ended up. Like they skinned him, and like someone was wearing his face as a mask and all that kind of stuff. And he was sort of the fool. Like, I mean, in more ways than one, he was sort of the like jester type, but he was also the one who peed on the ancestral tree or whatever it was, where like that guy lost his mind because he's being, on like where all the ancestors are. So like there's kind of maybe he was doubly appropriate for that, where or maybe that's why you kill him, but then how you kill him is like the straw thing because you need him to represent fire or something. Right.
Well, you see, they knew taxidermy because they were showing those young kids how to pull the insides of the bear out. They would probably just say, hey, try something on this dead person. Your final exam is a blood eagle. Here's somebody performing them. It's like, because this is a very unique opportunity. It happens. It would only happen once in that growing cycle of a person. Yeah. That all these stars would align. Maybe once a season, almost. But that's enough. That's enough to keep you in the cult. You don't need it all the time. You only need to see how terrible it is sometimes. But you always have to be reminded of how beautiful it is.
Right. Yeah, because that place was beautiful and it was bright and sunny. It wasn't too hot and stuff. So to them, probably this rituals was to pretty much, like we were talking about, is to please their gods. So that's why they had to be killed in a certain way. So maybe that person.
Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all something about Jehovah's Witnesses real quick, like as it pertains to this movie. Everything is so squeaky clean on the outside. Yeah. And it's always so bright. Men can't have beards. You have to wear a business suit. all the time. Your shirt shouldn't be untucked. You shouldn't wear white socks with your dress shoes. Like all these things. And it's to say, look, you can see us. There's nothing disgusting about us. Right. And that's the beauty of it being daylight all the time. They were like, you see how pretty it is here. Right. We're all
a family. Like, this is.
Yeah. You know, there's one of us here. You know, there's one person here that doesn't fit the physical standard of beauty. But that is the ugly truth of Halsing Land, that there is an ugly truth. And the ugly truth is they got 13 people there probably to take one of them and let them live. But what did she have to do to live? Like, what did she become? And what was she before? And so that's kind of where I want to go. Like, this is kind of the Tony Stark portion of the Midsommar conversation.
Right.
What if I told y'all that Danny's family was from this cult?
What?
You know, I always thought about that.
Oh, we're getting into the crazy fan theories. All right.
Okay. So I believe that Danny's family represents the cult family with the ex-cult member. Danny was the ex-cult member. Danny's sister tried to make her feel so guilty about not being with her family that's what led Danny's mental illness to the next level, and that's what you would think happened to the family. But what if Pell was the one who murdered the family? Because Danny, listen, Gary, listen.
I'm listening. I'm with you.
That picture of Danny in her parents' room had the headdress for the May Queen on it. When the parents were dead. Yeah. She was already crowned from that point. Only Danny, her family, if they sacrificed themselves to get Danny back in the cult, or Pell would ever have any idea that those three things were happening at the same time. Nobody else would. Like, why would there be flowers around Danny's picture in her parents' room?
I do know, I think when they go to, oh, you know what though? Never mind. I was going to say, like, I think for some reason Danny has this big framed print of a little girl sitting next to a bear. But I think that might actually be in Pell's apartment. So, like, that wouldn't, so it wouldn't be like, that's just more of like him being
right.
Not like a
right.
Go ahead.
It just goes back to Pell being particularly excited that she would be with them. And Pell always had intentions for Danny. He asked very douchey questions that a cult guy would ask. Like, does he feel like home?
Right.
I wish. You know what I mean? Like, don't go there.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely crowbarring. Like, he's trying to find like a little bit of daylight between the two of them from like the first time you see them together.
Yep. And he was willing to get rid of her family. That pulled her back to the cult, because that's what the game is always to get you back.
Right.
Because there's nobody more dangerous to the cult than the people who are no longer in the cult.
Right.
Because I know what they look like. Asher in the comments, he knows what they look like. So there's something important about taking somebody who's on a low and saying, now is the time to get the hooks in them. Now their flesh is soft enough to get the hooks back in them. And it always works. Or they think it always works. But they knew exactly what Danny would become.
I do agree with that. Like, I think at bare minimum, Pell was super opportunistic and could smell the opportunity there. Like, he knew, like, this is perfect. Like, this is like an ideal candidate. If not for, like, May Queen is just like who can dance the longest while high. But, like, that's like very much a die roll. You can't bet on that. But a good candidate for recruiting, like, like, she could have lived, like, they made it clear at some point. There was a conversation where it's like, well, every once in a while we invite people to stay. Like, I think even if she had lost May Queen, like they would have said, like, you should just stay. You know, like I think she was perfect. Like, she was just what you want.
It's a very nice thought. She was so perfect that she had already been there. She belonged there.
She
did. Like, why did she was able to speak the language at the end of the movie?
That was weird.
Because it was already there.
What, they had been there, like a few days?
A few days. Yeah. A weekend.
Yeah.
You know.
That was something somehow I missed when I watched it in the theater. But when I was rewatching it and like they're dancing and she starts kind of replying in Swedish.
Right.
Like, what is that about? What does that mean?
So just remember, there's nothing unexpected in a ritual. There's nothing unexpected in a ritual. It was expected for the two individuals to jump off the cliff.
Right.
There are murals that described everything that was going to happen. There's really no way that they didn't have Danny handpicked.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what made me maddest on a personal level about the movie, is you realize that it's never really about you to be in the cult.
Yeah.
You're never going to be May Queen. It's not for you.
Yeah. May
Queen had to have blonde hair and blue eyes. I don't have either one of those, and I never will. Danny immediately fit in as soon as they walked through that sun arch. And it was just about crowning her. She couldn't dance. There were no dances to do around the maypole. They all knew. It was just a ritual to crown Danny. Yeah. And would she accept it, or would they have to kill her? But they wouldn't have to kill her because they showed her how bad. They showed her the reality, how bad life outside of the cult was. And they killed everybody in the worst ways that had been mean to her, that was close to her.
Yeah.
And the one guy that was nice to her kisses her at the end.
Yeah.
It was he was already a Jehovah's Witness. And it was like, if you come back to the Jehovah's Witnesses, you can have all this and me. And I'm nice to you. None of these people were nice to you.
Right. You didn't have a home. Now you have a home. You didn't have a family. Yeah. Now you have a family. Well, a point you made that I want to piggyback on is that it's not about you, that there's no like individual victory here. And like, I thought that, to me, on the second viewing, I didn't get it the first time, but on the second viewing, it was like an aha moment for me when I was watching it. It's when you're watching first, okay, there's two halves to this. There's the cliff scene where the guy jumps off and he isn't killed. And he's like wailing on the ground while he's waiting for them to come and put him out of his misery.
Yeah.
And while he's wailing, all the cultists, they are like wailing sympathetically along. Like, so there, and it almost sounds mocking at first, but it's not. It's this kind of like empathetic, like he's suffering, we're all suffering. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then later in the movie, she happens to spy Christian, her boyfriend, having sex with the 16-year-old while all the women in the village are watching and cheering him on. And it's another great acting moment where she's like vomiting and crying. And so like, I mean, that's just like blows all her circuits. And she rushes off to where they all sleep, and she's sobbing. And the girls that are kind of escorting her around, they all follow her, and they're all sobbing along with her. And they're like mimicking again, like when she's like, like they all, like it's all sounds the same.
It's a robbery of identity.
Yeah, and that's what I got the second time. Where the first time I thought, the first time all I thought was, this is exactly what she's been looking for this whole goddamn movie, is want someone to feel what she's feeling, want someone to care about how she feels, want someone to share in her experiences.
Right.
And she's finally getting it. But then the second viewing, I was like, if everyone is feeling what you're feeling, then your individual experience is kind of irrelevant.
It's
And like,
diluted.
so like the guy who's at the base of the cliff writhing and screaming in pain, if everybody's screaming, it kind of invalidates your pain, you know?
Yep.
And if
Yeah.
like, if Danny's like my boyfriend, he's in a weird pagan orgy, boo hoo hoo.
Yep.
And if everyone's like boo hoo hoo, it kind of makes her suffering, even though she thinks she wants that, and even though she might feel good about it, irrelevant. Because the group is like, now the group is important. The group, not you.
The
It
group
doesn't matter
is
what you're feeling. And
unity,
she lost sight of that because
unity,
she's
unity.
so like damaged. She thinks like, this is what I've always wanted. Yeah, but be careful what you wish for, you know?
100%. Or
Sure.
accept what you wish for, but you have to own everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
Something that we used to say a lot as witnesses was, I can't wait for the new system because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like,
What's the new system?
The new system is when this world is destroyed and the Jehovah's Witnesses live on paradise earth. The earth is reformed. Look, I'm gonna show you a picture. I'm gonna try to do a screen share again.
Okay.
Watch this.
All right.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I've had a lot of Jehovah Witnesses come to my door and try to give me
These are the
papers.
pictures that I grew up with. Like, this is what paradise looks like.
Yeah, that was in the book.
It looks like the end of the movie.
100%.
Wait, go back
These are
though.
all. Look at this.
Like, this is what I always found funny. It's like you have like these people like in like the traditional robes, but then you see kids like in their Nikes. I'm like, that's paradise, you know? Why is people still wearing clothes? You know, I would think that they wouldn't be ashamed of their bodies at that point.
It's all, yeah. See the lion and the lamb laying down together. I see all the imagery. I see that's.
Yeah, you know what I see? I see a predator and kids. I'm not gonna go into it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop right there. But anyway, guys, there's so much nuanced cult shit that is just despicable in this movie, but not in a bad done way. It's just more of a raising awareness way, because
in a more
it's something that so many people wouldn't really even get unless they got it. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, just listening to Danny wail in the separate times in the movie, and that feeling of Danny seeing a group of people that she didn't fit in with, that she didn't know, when she was supposed to be on something to make her feel good, all she could think about was those people laughing at her.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a heartbreaking thing too. That was like when she was tripping, and she should not have taken that. Like, she's recovering from the death of her family. I think I thought I had this idea in my head that she might be on like meds.
They showed her taking medication.
Yeah. So it's like, you probably shouldn't be taking hallucinogens when you're on your meds. And she takes it as just like a nightmare trip.
Yeah. No, it was all calculated. And like, what if those people were laughing at her because they knew it could drive her down just a little bit deeper? It's like that's being disfellowship as a Jehovah's Witness. You get disfellowship, you can't talk, you become a ghost. You have to be where everybody else is, but you can't talk to anybody. Nobody can talk to you. Nobody can acknowledge you. People usually don't sit on the same row as you, but you're expected to go to the Kingdom Hall and listen to everybody talk and laugh and have a good time and hear about going to paradise and living with, you know, panda bears and lions that don't bite and vegetarian sharks. And then nothing happens, but nothing happens. But you get this fellowship and nothing happens, and you get reinstated and nothing happens. And then you leave and nothing happens. Or like in my case, nothing happened and then I left, and then you spend years anxious and you feel like you're being spied on, because sometimes you are, but nothing happens. But it's all in expectation of this great, terrible thing. And something that this story, and in a much, much smaller scale, Gilead City does, is establishes that nothing can happen forever. Sometimes we have to remind you of why you have to stay. And, at least you're not the 72-year-olds, but at least you're not the outsiders, but at least you're not the bear, but at least you're not inside the red thing. The yellow thing. No, you're not the May Queen either, but at least you're not the bear. And so you say, I got to do the best I can to not be the bear. And you assume that one thing is the goal, but nothing has to be the goal. You can just stop.
Yeah.
You can just stop at any point. Yeah. But you don't think you can, because you feel like the world is going to end as soon as you do.
Right.
And that's just kind of, hey, I'm a silly old man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to write comics. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to unlearn so many things at the same time. This story is just like, it was a good reminder of what got me in comics in the first place. And that's Ransom Notes. And you guys, I've been so fortunate this year that so many stories have affected me personally and affected my creativity almost, but not in a controlling way. But meeting Marshall and working with Aaron and meeting Ronnie, and then reviewing Gary's book and meeting Gary. And now it's like, I get to talk to you guys almost when I want to, but I also get to experience these great works, and I get to appreciate them as a peer, because Ari Aster did the same thing that I want to do. And he might have not even done it on purpose. But if you can get somebody in front of this movie, you can show them something. And it's why I wanted to talk about this movie tonight, because it's educational. Nothing is going to look like this, but you can identify with this. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is, because this movie came out, I would say it's how many years is this? Is it just 1 year, or what year did this
I think it's
come out?
2018, 2019.
Yeah, that's probably two maybe 2 years.
Maybe, going on 3 years now.
Yeah, besides Jehovah Witness, so many people are now talking about Scientology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the things that go on in Scientology. This movie came out around a perfect time, because you have so many people coming out of an occult and talking about all the terrible stuff that has happened to people in Scientology. And there's cults that I know personally where people were a part of, and they were told that, hey, pharmaceutical is it's witchcraft and you shouldn't do anything about it. So literally, this one woman, she was part of this cult, and she refused to get cancer treatments, and then she died in her car where her child was with her.
Yeah. You guys should check out the comic I did on the Jehovah's Witness blood doctrine on my Coffee account. It's the same thing. There are these decisions that are made around you that are life and death decisions, that for somebody like me who was born and this was the only thing I ever knew, you don't realize how serious this stuff is. How serious, how crazy is it that if you're a witness at the hospital, a Jehovah's Witness who has an office at that hospital will come and remind you and your family that you signed your blood card and you said that you won't take a blood transfusion. If you're going to die, you're going to set a fantastic example in the congregation. That's not your choice. And it's not even my choice to make or to not make. It's just something you prepare for, but you hope you never have to choose. You should not, like, at 12 years old, I was signing a blood card. 12. What do I know about life and death at 12 years old?
Right.
To make that kind of decision, man.
Yeah.
So I'm tailing off a little bit, but my point is, you got people who have lived in Halsing land that don't know any different than the death and destruction and learning how to take a human body apart before they even get to choose whether that's something that they would ever want to do or not, because it's disgusting. But they got little kids that are learning how to, like, do it. And some places you have to, but not like this. Like, they're learning for a different reason.
Yeah.
Well, and it's true that if you were a native of their community, you're kind of spared a lot of the horrors. Yes, in the weirdo firehouse lottery, like, your number could come up.
Right.
But all that takes, I can see, and this was a funny thing I also didn't notice the first time. Like, the Christian and who was the other guy? The other anthro?
Josh.
Yeah.
They're both anthro grads. Like, I was actually an anthropology major, and I'd somehow not really paid a lot of attention. I knew Josh was. I'd forgotten that Christian. I don't know. I just sort of glazed over it because I was so preoccupied with the rest of the movie. But I could sort of see functionally. And by the way, those two are the worst anthropologists I've ever seen in my life. Unbelievable. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, that is the hardest thing to believe in this whole movie. Like, that those two are grad students. But anyway, so I could see how, okay, yeah, your number might, first of all, the 72-year-olds, they're doing it willingly. Okay. Maybe once in a while, someone's going to pull a fugitive on you and flee the village. But, like, probably not. Like, at that point, if you've lived your entire life there, you're pretty indoctrinated. You've probably drank the metaphorical Kool-Aid. You believe that this is the correct thing to do at 72. We're jumping off the cliff. So those people you don't have to worry about. There's the people whose number might come up in the lottery, and they have to sit in the fire hut.
Yep.
That happens infrequently. They get drugged. So, like, their resistance, kind of like Christian and everybody else, is probably very diminished. And then once they're burned up, you don't have a malcontent, like, complaining about being in the fire hut. So, like, everyone else kind of feels like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Like, you can see how it could sort of roll on, you know, where if you're there, it's not bad. And the people who are having real horrors inflicted upon them are all outsiders. Right. And that becomes, like, a very classic, like, yeah, but they're other. They're like, they're, you know, they're heretics. They're like, they're not believers. Like, well, who cares? You know, like, it's not the same. We're not doing blood eagles to our people.
Right.
You know,
we would never do that. Like, these are decisions that these people made.
Right.
That's
right. And that's the rationale.
Yeah.
Like, Josh, he snuck into the library. He's taking pictures of the sacred book. Screw that guy.
What do we have? Yeah, we had to.
Yeah. These other two, like the two from England, they were going to take off and tell the world about, like, what these people are doing in the mountains. Like, we can't have that. We have a nice little thing going here. So, like, you can see how it's like, no, I can see if you're there, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. You're exactly right. It's not so bad. And it's never that bad as long as you, like, toe the line.
Yes.
Because as soon as you veer off course one way or the other, you have hell to pay.
Now you are
hell to pay.
Now you are another, and now you might find a blood eagle in your future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and that would be the thing. I mean, you can imagine the interventions. Like, I'm thinking about living in Stockholm, and like these people surrounding you, like, now wait a minute. I want you to really think about what you're saying, you know, like, and kind of, I mean, you would know this better than anybody, like, this kind of, like, whoa, like that sounds like crazy talk.
Yep. It was for me, it was like a year of research and, like, making friends, like Professor and Asher, who's in the chat, like, friends that were, like, I could trust and that got it. but I didn't really talk about them much. Like, and I don't know if they talked about me much, but we all just kind of stood on the outs, and you learn and you watch and you get a support system, and then you wanna try to do something about it, or some people just choose to walk away from it. I would say that, like, along with like experience with breakups, Ari Aster gets the cult stuff enough for me to say he might have personal experience, whether either knowing somebody or growing up around or adjacent to something. But there's just a few little subtle things that you don't understand unless you lived it. And I know Ronnie can speak to it as well. Like Ronnie knows a lot of the signs. Like when me and Ronnie first started talking, like I know he sees a lot of it.
What is the Hollywood one that was just recently? The weird Hollywood sex cult where...
Oh, was it like Nexum or something like that?
Yeah, whatever that was. Like maybe, like he had lots of material he could look at to kind of see like, well, how does this normally go down?
Yeah.
You know,
and look.
So tell me,
yes.
What is a Jehovah's Witness memorial? What's that?
Jehovah's Witnesses celebrate the memorial of Jesus Christ's death once a year. So they commemorate that Jesus died for the anointed Jehovah's Witnesses to set the stage so that the rest of the Jehovah's Witnesses could live forever on earth. And this is the most important time to be in a kingdom hall every single year. Even like this year over Zoom. So what you do at a memorial, it's basically Jehovah's Witness communion. But unless you're going to heaven, you don't eat the bread and you don't drink the wine.
So it's not like communion.
I mean, yeah, but you don't eat it. It's not for you. Mm-hmm. It's actively taking, like, if you're a Christian, and I don't think that my beliefs or anybody else's beliefs are important to anybody else except for them. And you're like, I support what anybody believes, but I'm just telling my story.
Right.
But with Christians, you believe that Jesus died for you. So you partake of the bread and wine because that allows you to go to heaven, to be with Jesus. But Jehovah's Witnesses are built and bred to believe that only 144,000 people from the time that Jesus died to currently are the only people who will ever go to heaven. And of those 144,000 people, which there are not very many of on earth now, 8 of them in New York are the brothers in Christ who are the only spokespeople for God on earth. This is the only way that you can have any lasting spiritual success, is by following these 8 men.
I did know. I mean, I'm not surprised that I don't know it because I don't know a lot about Jehovah's Witness, but like I had no, like, so 144,000 from all history.
From like all history, from the time that Jesus died.
There's only 8 existing now at any
that you should listen to.
That's amazing.
Yep. There's a paragraph in one of the watchtowers that says that you are to follow anything that you're told from these men and from the elders in your kingdom hall, whether it appears to be logical from a human standpoint or not.
Just
like
flat, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's only a few things that can apply to. Like it's like now we're talking in Jonestown, but this is like with a religion that claims 8,000 followers. I don't think it's that many Jehovah's Witnesses. I think is what they say. But
is it that few? 8,000?
I'm sorry, not 8,000. 8 million.
Okay, I was like 8,000. Yeah.
No, I would believe it to be closer to like maybe 2 or 3 million.
Oh, you think they're rating probably?
Yeah, I definitely think they are. I managed to get to 2 Zoom memorials this year. Got footage of the whole thing at both. Figured I needed to make up for missing last year's. They were super thirsty. Yep, they're running out of people. Yeah, they definitely fudge their numbers though. Like,
So it must not be locked up too tight. Like, so how are you getting into the Zoom memorials? Like I mean, that I'm assuming that's there's some,
there's Jehovah's Witnesses are only tight unto themselves. they're not top notch security people. They think they are, but like you
okay.
can
There are
you
ways.
can say
There are
yeah
ways.
yeah
And
you can
clearly there's
say
people who are
anything.
not like super
Yeah,
dedicated to the
yeah,
faith where it's like I'll share my password or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like it's simple to get into a Kingdom Hall if you're willing to drive far enough away from like your general area,
Wow.
but like it's you guys like it's Jehovah's Witnesses in particular, and I'm sure that anybody would say it about any thought control group that they're in, but it messed me up. Like it really did. Like I feel like I'm like 20 years old, but I'm 40. Like I feel like my whole life was put on hold. I don't know how to deal with things all the time. Like,
wow.
It sucks, man.
That's interesting. So yeah,
That's
you just call up and say like, I'm a prospective resident, like at an apartment.
Yep.
I want a tour. I just want to walk.
It's worth it for them to get people. Like even I bet now, like if they didn't know, like
they need come on.
Yeah, but that's their whole thing. Is like in order for them to live forever, there has to be a bloodbath on Earth, and that's the truth. And they've started to say it a little bit, but that's the craziest part of all this is they pray for like the worst things imaginable to happen to most people. I remember being a kid, Ronnie. I feel like I've talked so much that you haven't really got the chance to say anything.
And also I can tell like this is not his time. Like like I feel like, oh God, because you get up at I don't understand your sleep schedule. I can tell it's very different from mine, which I think what time you normally.
Well, let's see. I used to work 4 a.m. to 1, but they changed my hours to 6 a.m. to 3 p.m.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's crazy.
But it's one of those things that even though I'm doing the 6 to 3, I still try to go to bed roughly, around 9, 10 o'clock, and then wake up probably about like 3 o'clock.
Right.
So that's why I'm
what
usually
time is it right now where you are?
10:32.
Yeah, so you're pushing.
Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that I had during the show I had to take my medication because I got to take one pill. I got to take one pill 4 times a day and take another one 2 times a day. So
do they make you sleepy?
Oh yeah. Well, the condition it can make me sleepy anyway, but it's just with the 2 different medications. So
right. So
well, shoot, Ronnie, do you want to wrap up, man?
No, it's fine.
Keep you up. You sure?
No, trust me.
I'm glad you're here.
I don't work. I'm off Fridays and Saturdays. Usually I try to fight my sleep because that's like the best time where I can try to start dishing out some comic art.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Okay, I guess I'll keep going then. Like this is like Midsommar, but I am wanting y'all to understand like there's levels to this. Like these are the ways that stories. This is the powers that like stories and music have over people. Is they like this is my Roberta Flack movie. Like this movie kills me softly. It really, really does because it's like not only have I lived this, but it's like this is the way I want to tell stories about what I went through because this is relatable for a lot of people. But to me and to you, different, Gary. Like. To me, this told one story. Like Danny was always felt like she was just a little bit better than everybody, but she didn't really know how to communicate it. But she never would have communicated it until she got to somewhere where everybody thought the same way. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought the same way in Halsing Land. And I do think that there's no way, there was nothing that Josh would have done Josh did not belong there. And I'm saying Josh particularly and Simon particularly did not have a place there.
Right.
And that is also a very similar thing that's never said, but there's enough cues to know. Like,
yeah, well, and even Christian, I don't know about you guys, but like, I almost felt like his name being Christian,
it was a message.
just a little on the nose. Like, I
Yeah.
actually found it a little
sure.
distracting every time I heard it, because to have like this character who you feel like is probably doomed, Christian, show up in this like weird pagan village where like all this crazy shit's going down, like you just know like he's not long for this world, you know.
No.
And like, and you feel like I was imagining it because I've watched it twice now and I'm not actually detecting it, but I almost felt revulsion in the natives' tone when they had to pronounce his name. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, I like every time I went, especially the matriarch, it's like, does it gall her to have to refer to this guy as Christian? Like, you know, like that kind of like, you know, because this, and that was just something where it's like, I almost want his name to be anything else, even if it's just Chris.
Right.
Like, you know, wink at it. Like, yeah,
right.
You know, like, but that was.
Witnesses reject the notion of, they call themselves Christian, but they reject everything about it to the point that they don't even recognize a cross. Like, they believe that Jesus died on a stake. A stake. Exactly.
I remember I was in a doctor's office when I was a kid. Someone had left a watchtower. Someone had left a watchtower, and like I was literally.
It was probably me.
Was it you? Did you do it? No, I was probably
he's coming up to your door like polka dice too. God is in his holy temple.
I've never met a Jehovah's Witness like evangelizing or whatever. Like, it's here, and at least in Arizona, it's Mormons. Like, they will come around, but. So anyway, I was like probably 6 or 7, and I picked up the Watchtower and was flipping through it, and I still remember plain as day because it was a little shocking. I remember a drawing of Jesus on the stage, like with his, you know, his wrist nailed like this, and I remember asking my mom. I was like, "What?" You know, because I mean, I was raised Catholic, so like this was like. Totally baffling, you know, after looking at crucifixes my whole life, even as short as my life had been, like this made no sense at all. And because that just seemed like a truism, you know, like, okay, well, Jesus, cross, what's going on here? And I apologize to if there are any good-hearted Jehovah's Witnesses, like, you know, watching. I apologize if this is dismissive, you know, but my mom looked at it and she's like, ugh. Jehovah's Witness stuff, you know, and like just totally like no. Like,
I wish somebody had said that to me like 25 years ago.
It's just like, no, put that down. Like, no. I don't even, and she didn't even want to explain it to me. Like, didn't even want to. And I remembered it later in life. I was like, yeah, what was the deal with the stake thing? And I went and like Googled it to try and figure out like, what is that about? But like, I had it was just a weird, like, I just remember that image, and that's pretty much all I knew about it.
Oh, that's so funny, Asher. I remember, like, I used to hit laundromats on my way to the field service meeting, because if I left like 2 out, you could start your time before you got to the Kingdom Hall. That was like a pro tip. So you could constantly be counting the time that you were out in service, because you had to turn in a slip at the end of every month that had how much time you served.
Did you have to knock on so many doors too?
Doors. You get territory cards. You got to knock on doors. Place magazines.
Bicycles with your Men in Black suits.
We didn't ride the bikes. We had mostly Honda Accords, but
I'm sure Honda appreciates that.
It's not an endorsement. Honda, you don't want them in your car. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. But it was so crazy. Like, you would get these slips of paper and you would write, okay, no adults home, parents work till 6 every day, kid 11 years old, watches 4-year-old sister in house. like, you know how bananas that is, especially knowing now what their challenges are, like what they have trouble keeping in check. And so why would you want that many details about houses? Yeah, Mormons ride bikes. That's what I was gonna say, but I didn't want to be too general. But I always knew that the Mormons rode the bikes whenever we were out in service because we had cars. But
so it's like the Bloods versus the Crips. No.
Were there any like?
It's the no bloods.
Yeah.
It's the no bloods versus the Crips.
Story face-offs between the Mormon missionaries and the like in a back alley, like Anchorman. Yeah, snapping. Did they snap up?
No, we wasn't allowed to fight.
Like anything like that.
No, we wasn't allowed to fight. Like we're not allowed to fight back. We have to.
That's disappointing. That's
good. We have to be good model witnesses. You know. No beards. You have to wear our nice little suits. But nah, man, like this is a good, I totally needed, let's see, what did Asher say? They totally need Google your address to make sure someone actually lives there so they do it right. Yeah, I've gotten
Wow.
3 letters since we moved over here because I mean, they know us, but they don't know who we are. So
yeah,
we got invited to memorial. We got invited to like, this was all over Zoom, but they write letters now instead of coming to your door. But the letters are all cookie cutter.
That's funny.
Yeah, I love that one.
I want to see like Jehovah's Witness and Mormon tags, like in certain parts of town where it's like this is our territory.
All you gotta do is look for the carts. Jehovah's Witnesses always have these carts with magazines on them. Like they got a music video about them. Like being in that cult is weird. I don't know if there are any good cults. I can't imagine that there would be because I don't believe that you should want to control anybody else's mind. And shame on the people that do, especially when they're hiding dirt. Like that's really, really wrong. And when you know better and you do the opposite, I feel like you should be exposed. So I'm glad that
especially when there's
like
polygamy going on, like
polygamy, child abuse, racism, like you name it, like it exists. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses are a Rubik's cube of toxicity, and everything doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Just like this housing land, everything individually doesn't seem like that big of a deal if you're on the inside. Because none of your people are ever going to go through these things, like you were saying. And only like maybe 4, 2 that jump off a cliff and 2 that get set on fire.
Yeah.
And the messed up thing is the natives don't get the mushrooms. They get like stuff that don't work. That's why they gave that guy that water. Like
work that well.
This will make you not feel pain.
Yeah, they gave him
he was screaming like James Brown.
The yew tree or something.
Yeah.
But as soon as the fire touches them, they're screaming. You know.
As soon as like there was nothing. It was like,
can't I get the bear guy's potion? Can't I get Danny's potion? Like, why?
Yeah, can you blow some of that stuff in all of our faces? Like,
yeah, you're gonna give me fucking maple
burn
syrup?
us alive.
Like, you're setting me on fire. Don't give me
Yeah.
a ginger shot. Like, give me something. You know.
I have a recording. I also have a recording like this, Asher. The same thing. Y'all, I'm telling you, they're not harmless. Research them and grill them if they come to your door. Make them go away because they're not good people. No. I take that back. I shouldn't say that. They have very bad teachings. I don't want to say, because I think that good people can be anywhere. They just may not know any better. I didn't know better for a long time. And so
it's hard when you're in it.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it is. Like, I don't have the experience you have, but whatever it is, like it's
hard when you're in it.
It's hard to really kind of get.
Yeah, it's hard to be born in it and not have a perspective on the outside world other than, like Danny, being laughed at. Like, she assumed that these people were laughing at her, and maybe they were, just like the people on the outside world laughed at her. And that's all we know. Like it's hard to feel like more of a misfit than I do sometimes. And it's not like an emo thing or a sad thing. I just don't like there are situations that I don't really have a clue of how to exist in. And it's okay because it's who I am. And like I said, I'm not bemoaning it. I'm just saying, like, sometimes people have to be patient with me because I don't have I didn't do all the social things that led up to being 40 years old and having to exist in a social world all the time, you know?
Well, for what it's worth, I think I feel similarly, and I don't have the excuse.
Well, good.
You know, like, I'm just an awkward creative introvert. Like, and that's my, like, I can't say like, well, I was sort of stuck in this weird, like, no, it's all totally self-inflicted. But, yeah.
Yes, it is the policies that are insidious, Ash. You are 100% right. The people don't know better, but you can only believe this dark shit so long before it starts to become who you are. And I'm fortunate to say that, like, once my wife and I recognized certain things, we made decisions quick. Like, once we started to put it together, it wasn't like we had to stick around for an extended period of time. And I am proud of that part. But it's very hard to get there if you don't know, like, what direction do you go in if you think that the whole world is poison? Like, how would you talk somebody off of a mountain where it was sunny all the time? Because there's bad stuff that happens there. But how do you explain to them, like, that this is not the right way? Right. You would just be hard, and that's the challenge.
Right, and like, you can imagine, you can just imagine the excuses not to, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, talking about like the Midsommar group, you know, if it's sort of like, well, I'm thinking about leaving, or like, you should leave, you should come with me, you know, like, this place is crazy, you should come back with me. You can imagine them saying like, well, don't people like die in car wrecks in your world?
Yeah.
Don't people like live alone in apartments and never have a conversation with anybody else for months? And don't people, like, I mean, you could imagine them like saying like, I don't know, that doesn't sound like an improvement. You know, like, there's a lot that comes with the situation I have that's nice, you know, that like makes me not have to worry about things.
That's what they always used to tell us about churches. They're like, they're big and they're cold. And who wants to sit in those pews when we have cushion chairs? Like, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that is true. I would rather have a cushion chair. And then the few times as a kid that you have to go, like, maybe to a funeral that's in a church, you're like, oh, wow, these chairs are uncomfortable.
They are.
And that's all you register. You don't register that either something that might be better than, or at least might mean, you can't recognize that it means as much to people as what you do does to you. Because number one, you're at a funeral, and number two, you are focused on the wrong things on purpose. Like, it's so insane.
It's so easy to do that. And like, not to get too political, but, you know, I mean, you hear even with the conversations about what about, let's say, like, you know, a government healthcare plan. It's like, but what about the weights? You know, and it's like, that's kind of like, but there's no cushions in the pews. I mean, it's like, you're focusing on the weirdest aspect of this.
Right.
You know? Like, I mean, but how do you even argue back with that? Like, you can't, it's hard to tell somebody, it's like, I think you're really missing the forest for the trees here, buddy. Like, 100%. I mean, if you're concerned about the cushions, you know, like, I mean, that's.
By the time you leave JV, you're lost because they teach you how to tear apart and dispute any, so you really don't know what to believe. 100%. That's the trick of the Watchtower, is if you can't believe in them, you can't believe in anything. It is the toxic relationship. It 1000% is. If you don't have me, you're nothing. Like, where else would you go? You can't do anything. But man, guys, I can talk about Midsommar for another 2 hours at least.
Yeah, it is a great movie. Yeah,
But
Yeah, it is.
I have to go to the zoo tomorrow. So
we're 2 hours in.
I appreciate y'all letting me be in your ear for 2 hours. Yes, Ash, it 1000% is a relatable movie, and writing is relatability. If I could put anything on my writer's tombstone, that's what it would be. If you can relate to somebody, you can tell them any story, and they'll follow you whatever you have to say. You just have to find common ground with them. But find us at our links, guys. Thank you so much. Like, this has been very cathartic for old Foggy.
Thank you
I
for
appreciate it. No,
Yeah.
man, like anytime. Like, let's do this some more sometime. So
Yeah, we should. Every
Find
few
us
months, we
all.
should do like some movies,
I'm into it. Like, we got to do the thing at some point, right? Like, that's got to happen.
Oh, the thing. Oh my God. Yeah,
I'm trying to keep up, Ash. Like, I want to be a active YouTuber one day, and I want to have important stuff to say. So I'm trying. So I'll do some more of these. We'll do some more of these. Yeah, we got to plan the thing at some point soon. Me and Ronnie still got our channel. Gary, man, it's always good to have you on. It's always good to chat with you. Go buy Gary's book. Go read Ronnie's book. Go read my comics, guys. Fallbreaker Studios, Crimson Hell Comics, Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. Thank you and good night. And ask cults questions. Don't just join them. Be good. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Night.